So I'm excited to share this conversation with everyone. I recently sat down with Dublin Jiu Jitsu. Cole Miller and John Thomson came on my podcast, Roots Beneath the Rocks. Cole fought professionally in the UFC. Prior to that, he was on The Ultimate Fighter Season 5. Has seen a lot of success. John Thomson is a first-degree Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt and a longtime instructor of that particular martial art. I'm going to link all their socials below and both websites to their academies. They have Miller Martial Arts Academy and also Dublin Jiu Jitsu, where they do a week free trial where you can get some exposure to their environment and what they offer. I really hope you guys enjoy the conversation. It was a great one. I'm very excited. So I guess you guys are part owners of Dublin Jiu Jitsu together.
Yep.
Really just Dublin Jiu Jitsu. John Thomson, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt.
Yes, sir.
How many degrees?
I'm first degree.
First degree?
Yep.
I act like I know what that means, but
No, it's okay.
We can get into it.
yeah. My first degree, yes. I won't ask, but actually I will. How many degrees are there?
9 technically. Technically 10.
10?
Yeah, technically 10.
My God.
I can give a brief synopsis on that kind of stuff, but if I really start talking about it, it may go on for a while.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Dang. Okay. Well, and then we have Cole Miller, very excited as well. So, Cole, you fought in you were amateur fighting, I guess, throughout the U.S. mainly.
Yep, from like 2003 to 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turned pro and continued that until January of 2007 when I got on the Ultimate Fighter and started fighting the UFC.
Oh, wow. You were on the show?
Yep.
Dude, that's awesome. I always remember that iconic season with Rampage. You know what I'm talking about? Rampage Jackson and who's the other dude?
Rashad Evans.
Rashad Evans, where he rips the door.
2 really good fighters.
Yeah, yeah. What season were you on?
5.
Season 5? Wow. Dang. And that's your main way of getting into the UFC?
That was how I got in, yeah.
Wow. Awesome, man. Well, I'm very excited to get into these two guys' lives and, what you guys do and have done. Seems like at least for my normal guests, I don't want to say normal, but the people I've interviewed so far, you guys are the most deadly. The most deadly 2 men. Anyways, so, all right. When you guys, I guess we could start with this. Dublin Jiu Jitsu started, and we were talking earlier, it was this year you guys opened up Dublin.
That's correct.
Nice. Okay. And you have one in, is it Perry?
I have one in Warner Robins.
Warner
Or
Robins.
Bon Air.
Okay.
Same thing.
I got you. And with opening up those, were you guys in it together at that point, opening up the first one?
No.
He had already had a school for many years in Perry.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of said, hey, I would love to have you guys over here. Let's make that happen.
Yeah, Cole was always really nice enough to drop in and train every time he was in town because you were still pretty much, professional fighter training out of Coconut Creek, but his home was here.
I see.
And so, Cole was always dropping in at the gym and training. I think I met you in 2008, 2009.
That sounds about right.
About that time. And, it was just, one of those kind of natural progression things where it, definitely worked out.
Mm. And what was so you had a school prior, what was that called?
It was called Zonchen.
Nice. How'd you guys get into mixed martial arts? That's probably a loaded question.
Well, I saw it. That's how.
Yeah.
And I had a brother, so like we just fought all the time. I mean, pretty violent actually, but saw the UFC, thought it was cool, and that was how I got started. So it's like whatever. I was young, but try to replicate the moves, fighting your brother, doing pro wrestling moves on your brother, and you guys are just going at it all the time, and then had been to some amateur and regional level professional shows. Nothing like a UFC event. Back then, people can't believe this now, but back then there was a UFC show once every other month. So like 6 events a year, and they were pretty much solely in Vegas. So There was some regional shows that I got to go see, which I thought was cool, and went into a local spot that was training like out of like a Gold's gym or like a fitness style gym, 2 days a week in Macon, and then they were in Griffin the other 3, like subleasing space. You see what I'm saying? So I started training, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then like 5-6 months later, I found myself in a ring fighting twice in the same night. So I was like, that's how it happened.
Double header. Wow. Twice in the same night.
That was not uncommon back then.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang. What I'm assuming they had weight classes, whatnot.
Yeah.
What weight class were you in?
The first one, I think it was like a 155 and under.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
that's a big weight class. If you think about it.
Yeah. Because back then, again, it's hard for people to think. Like, it wasn't like it is now. There wasn't a 125 or 115 or 135 weight class. It was like if you found somebody that was close in weight and you got lucky enough and it was close in experience on top of that, you guys were fighting.
Dang. Wow. And that was, were you competing in Macon and Griffin? Or
I was training. I was training there. The first time I fought was in Phoenix City, Alabama. It was supposed to be in Columbus, Georgia, but the day before, the people that owned the venue found out what NHB or MMA actually meant, and then they thought it wasn't Christian, so they said, "No, you're not coming in our venue with that." And so the promoter had to scramble and just cross the border into the other state line and found like a rec department or something like that gymnasium that would let them host it.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy.
I ain't having that unholiness in my place.
Yeah, that's how it happened.
Bunch of heathens.
Yeah. It was not very accepted or really known about back then. I mean, it wasn't like UFC wasn't on pay-per-view. It existed, but it was like a very niche community.
Yeah, because even when I watched it back in the day, I say back in the day, like 07, 08.
It was already hot by that time.
Yeah.
I know. I could imagine. What years was that when you were first going? Like
2003.
03.
When I was fighting and training.
Wow. Dang. So you had was it a kind of thing where you won and then you got to fight the next guy? Was that like why you?
Yeah. it was like a tournament. You know, you fought. If you won, you fought again.
The same night.
Yeah.
Congratulations, bud.
Yeah, I think I did that. I think I did that 4 times.
Yeah. Oh wow!
Like on different shows, like 4 times.
And it was at a rec department because the other place thought you guys were a bunch of Satan worshiping.
Yeah.
Face punchers.
That's right.
Wow. As far as like the equipment advancement back then, was it pretty? I don't know. Not as padded, maybe, or
equipment has come a long way. I mean, in the fight, it was the same. There's, I mean, you have 4-ounce gloves on, and 4-ounce glove is a 4-ounce glove. Some feel a little bit different. It's still a 4-ounce glove.
Yeah.
But as far as training equipment, oh yeah, that's come a long way.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. So, all right, you were fighting amateurly, and then how did you have to do like a what's them things where you do like a video of yourself and you submit it to the? Did you have to do that for the Ultimate Fighter, where it's like, hey, I'm Cole Miller?
No. So I'd had a successful amateur career and like won belt, and then it was time to turn pro, and then I had fought pro 13 times, some number similar to that, and I had already won some professional titles like on regional shows too. And my manager at the time was already in talks with Joe Silva, who was the matchmaker for the UFC at the time. And I had fought in front of Joe Silva. I took a fight in Richmond, Virginia, just to be seen by Joe Silva. So I fought this local guy who I was brought in to get beat up by the local guy, and flew in with no cornermen, because the promoter told me if I did that I would make a little bit more money than if I flew without one. And I was confident in my skills. So I just went up there and did it, and
All by yourself.
yeah, I had a guy from the crowd hold some water, and he had a stopwatch, and his job was to tell me when it was 3, 2, and 1 minutes left. But I got that FaceTime with Joe Silva, and my manager at the time had been communicating back and forth, and was like, "Hey, we want Cole in, we want Cole in," and then they were pretty sure they were gonna get rid of the lightweight division. So I was a 145 pounder fighting at 155, which was the smallest weight class in the UFC at the time. And they weren't sure what they were going to do with the lightweight division. And then Joe Silva had contacted my manager and said, "Hey, we're going to try this lightweight thing one more time. We're going to see if this can kind of breathe some new life into the weight class. We would love to have Cole on it. But it's not, we can vouch for Cole, like the UFC meaning on the skill set, but the people at the Ultimate Fighter, like Pilgrim Films or the Spike TV, the company that Spike TV contracted to do the Ultimate Fighter, those people have to like Cole, and also, so it had nothing to do with were you good enough. They already kind of knew that, but I had to have face-to-face time in front of the producers, because at that time it was reality TV. It was so you had like guys that belonged, a couple guys that didn't, but even the guys that all belonged, they had different personality types. This was handpicked to be this way, and I went to this tryout that was in Hollywood, Florida. So I was in Coconut Creek. So we're talking about a 20-minute drive. It was nothing. So I went in. There was a grappling portion and a striking portion. I did it, but I was on the pads for like 10 seconds, and they were like, good. I mean, they literally just needed to push me through to sit down in front of the producers. I talked to them. They liked me, and I got on.
Wow. Were they like asking you questions? And
yeah, I can't even remember really what the interview questions were, but there was a set of questions that they asked every single person that made it to that stage, and they were basically trying to feel you out, probably what the confidence is like, what the background is like, mannerisms. It was probably they were probably looking at you from more of a human behavior standpoint, testing not only your responses but your reactions and things like that. Not necessarily your answer.
I see. Oh,
if I had to guess.
Wow, that's interesting. Never really thought of it that way. So there was like almost like you had to sell yourself essentially, in a way.
Yeah.
Make sure you were marketable for people to watch whatever.
And again, they already knew that they were going to have 15 other people, and they wanted to make sure that maybe you're not unique, but they wanted to know that this person might integrate well with some, but also clash with others, because that's good for the reality TV portion. It wasn't only about are they good back then, because they were still trying to sell the sport, and the best way to sell it at that time was not just the fighting, but who these people were as people. So that's the other side of it. Now we don't have to do that because people respect the athletes, and it's, we're getting, it's a little saturated. We've got many shows, a lot of fighters making money. There's probably 2 to 3 events happening a week now between different promotions. So now it's accepted. So it's arrived. That's why the Ultimate Fighter doesn't happen as often anymore. And you have things like the Contender Series and these other things, because it has arrived due to, what they were doing back then.
So you were in on like the OG days.
I hate hearing that because I remember who the real OGs were. You know what I mean? Like,
I see. Wow. Well, that's cool, man. Dang. So when you got on the show, how long was that time frame where you were like filmed and in, I guess, the house?
It was 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
January of 2007 to March 1st or whatever.
It's a long time.
Yeah, to be in a house with 15 other dudes?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
Did you have some clashing moments?
Not really.
Everybody's pretty
I mean, on the show, people can go watch the show. There were some clashing moments, but not so much with me. I mean,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of the people, you know, they tended to kind of develop some camaraderie because nobody really wanted to be there.
Oh yeah.
You know, like the guys that were like on the level, they didn't want to be there. They wanted to be fighting in the UFC. They wanted to be home training for a real training camp with their actual team, watching TV, being around their coaches, having access to everyday life where they're from. They were only doing it to get in the show. When I say the show, I don't mean the Ultimate Fighter. I mean the UFC.
Well, it means to an end. I see.
Yes.
Dang. And now, so who or when was your first UFC fight?
June 2007 at the Palms in Las Vegas.
Were you nervous?
No.
No. You'd already done it so much by that point.
I was never nervous until, I would say, my fourth UFC fight, because I understood that if I lost that fight, that I would probably be cut because I was coming off of a loss. So I won my first two fights. I lost my third fight, and I knew, because that was just basically the rule. If you lost two in a row, you're gone. That's just how it was back then.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's still like that for some guys and then not like that for other guys. It just depends on who you are, who you're fighting at the time. But back then, that was pretty much a universal rule. So I understood the pressure. So I was nervous for that, but I never really developed nerves. I just kind of, I'm here to fight, and I get to fight. This is what I like to do.
Wow. Dang. And so I remember we were just talking out there. You don't particularly sound like you fixate on the record of your UFC career and whatnot.
I know what my UFC record is. It's 10 wins, 9 losses, and 1 no contest. When people talk about what's your pro record, again, amateur fights back then were the same as pro. You just didn't make money. I don't remember. If I think about it, I can probably recall the record, but I just don't know. I had 45 fights, real fights. And some happened on the Ultimate Fighter, which aren't on your record. Then you've got pro fights, then you've got your UFC record. Then you have what they called an amateur record, which now it's truly amateur. Guys aren't getting paid, but they're wearing shin guards. They've got bigger 7-ounce gloves. They have certain things they cannot do as an amateur that you could do it as a pro. So now it's truly amateur. But back when I was fighting, it was just like, hey, these guys are. It was a way for the promoter to not have to pay nobody. You see what I'm saying?
God, ruthless promoters. Dang. So
that's a real thing.
Yeah.
God. Well, and so you were fighting those amateur fights and not receiving any money.
That's right. That's what amateur is.
Just doing it for the love of straight up fighting. And
yeah.
Wow. When did you decide you wanted, I want to do this as a pro?
After my first amateur fight.
Wow.
First 2 fights. That night I fought twice, yeah.
You were like, you know what? I could do this.
No, I will do this.
Nice. That's awesome, man. Wow. Okay. And your last fight, what date was that? Do you remember in the UFC?
December of 2016.
2016. Oh, so it wasn't that long ago. Okay.
I like hearing that.
Oh man. Well, okay. So John, you had your I guess business or academy where you were doing jiu-jitsu. How did you get into martial arts?
I grew up doing traditional martial arts and boxing and taekwondo. Got into kickboxing. Had a injury when I was a teenager that derailed a lot, and then I was about 18 or 19 years old whenever the doctors were pretty much like you're grown now, you can pretty much pursue whatever you want to do, like your leg's going to do what it does. And at the time I was always interested in learning grappling, there really wasn't a avenue for that in Middle Georgia at the time. It was like say it was like MMA clubs that which credit to a lot of those guys who had those MMA clubs, because some of them now are some of the best coaches in Georgia, or actually cultivated what are now some of the best coaches in the area. So I got into that as almost just like a hobby, and because it was I kind of geek out on things that I'm interested in, and martial arts was always one of them. But I always wanted to learn submission based grappling. I had a real like just a healthy kind of obsession of trying to learn. And I don't know if you remember like LimeWire and BearShare. It was like
I do.
Yeah. I could lie, but I guess I won't lie.
Basically, like if you were gonna illegally burn CDs.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Okay. LimeWire. I know LimeWire.
Yeah, and at the same time, give your computer HIV. You could also download with like instructionals, and at the time we had very few of them, but the old Gracie in action. I had like LimeWire, because of LimeWire and BearShare. I basically had all the VHS versioned, like bootlegs on my computer, and would sit there and study them. And there was a little MMA club that I joined that were because they were doing grappling, and they knew that I had gotten back into kickboxing. They invited me in, and basically they just wanted to, somebody to, like a body to train with, like, and nobody was really, I would say there was a guy that was teaching things, but, it was just basically a bunch of people who were, noobs, and we were just, going in there and training every day. And anyways, that kind of dissolved, as it should have, because we really didn't know what we were doing. And I sat there and tried to find a grappling school, and I started traveling around the state, visiting different places. And with, my work schedule and life, I was like, well, can I travel an hour and a half here, once a week? Do I have time for that? And finally I found a judo club, and, judo's a martial art that's, very, very akin to jiu-jitsu. And so I learned there. My first night there, I pretty much got hooked on learning it. And it was kind of funny because I'd went to another spot, and this place was they were doing, it was like an MMA team, right? And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching all these videos, and then we're going in and we're training, and this guy's supposed to be coaching, and I get into a position, some people will call it like a spider web, but essentially like I'm on top of somebody and I've got their arm, and I'm trying to separate their arm from the rest of their body and straighten it out into an arm lock. And I'm sitting there tugging on this guy's arm, and I couldn't get it free. And I said, hey, coach, I'm in this position right here, and I've got this man's arm, and I'm trying to separate from his body, and, he can't get up, but I'm also not able to do anything from here, like submit him. Like, what do I do? And he says, well, I know exactly what you're talking about, but it's too dangerous, and I don't show that move. And I said, okay. And then in the same breath, he goes, oh, by the way, we're fighting MMA fights in a bar in Alabama this weekend. We'd love to have somebody your size on the team. And I was like, no. And so I think that was my last week there. And like I said, I found the judo club and would drive the hour to the judo school, and it was just in a rec department. The very first class, the very first technique that they showed. I mean, there was kids around. Like, nothing was dangerous about it. And they showed how to break a grip and straighten out somebody's arm so you can get a tap on them.
That's crazy.
And it was like...
So the move that was so dangerous,
So dangerous.
he couldn't show
Yeah.
unless you paid for that secret 3 a.m. ninja class. So he couldn't do that. But this other place is
Yeah.
showing it in front of children.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, let's go to Alabama and fighting a no rules move. like
At a bar, right?
Yeah, at a bar. It was legitimately a bar. But it just kind of progressed from there. It was the judo club that told me, it was like, hey man, like, you're coming all the way from, you know, like, because I was living on the Houston County, Pulaski County line at the time. And it was like, you're coming all the way from down there, man. You need to meet this guy, Bob. And it was, you know, who ended up being my jiu-jitsu coach, who had moved into the area. And so then I started actually what I would consider the 3 to 4 years of training prior to meeting him and getting involved with the Zonchen team. It was training, but there's a difference between training and education, and that's part of why we started, Dublin Jiu Jitsu here, because
That's right.
There's a big difference between the two, and so the years prior I was training, and once I got involved with my actual jiu-jitsu coaches, I started my education.
And you were young 20s around that time?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I would imagine I don't know, but I would imagine there's a big difference between what you're saying, training and just kind of rolling around or maybe striking. So I've had some experience training.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as education and programming and a strategic process of taking someone completely brand new through a system of education on self-defense, because that's why I wanted to do any form of martial arts, is right before you guys came, I was doing Muay Thai. And I just wanted to, because I'm married and I have 2 young daughters, and I would like to, and it's a fun hobby, but
Very much so.
the skill of knowing how to defend yourself, because a lot of people, I don't know if, I'm sure you guys have heard this, but I'll tell people like, yeah, I was trying out this Muay Thai thing. Like, well, I got a gun. Why do I need that? I'll just blast them. It's like, I don't want to kill anyone. God, I just want to subdue them if I have to. And you know what I mean? Like,
Anybody that says things like that, I know that they're weak, and I would destroy them.
I need to make that a freaking soundbite. That was great.
Yeah.
Well, I believe it. But that is a very weird, maybe they're just saying that because of their own insecurity.
That's 100% what it is.
Yeah, that's
Any
what
of
it
these
is.
guys are outside the waistband, 1911, 45 ACP carrying, or they're inside the waistband and they've got to pat their fupa, with some sort of reference of their firearm, and they'll be like, I got this right here. I know that you'd be the first to die in any type of weapon integrated environment if the fight broke out. That's why you're carrying that thing like that.
Yeah. Well, I've seen, I think on, in preparation for this, I was
By the way, hold on. I love firearms.
Yeah.
And I love the Second Amendment. I'm just that character. I know that's who they are.
yeah.
I guarantee you're carrying right now.
Strap, dog.
Yeah. I don't ever have to carry when I'm with Cole.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, he's got it.
Yeah, I could tell by that Tacoma out there. You know what I'm saying? And I was in an active shooting situation about 4 weeks ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was
Where
in
at?
Johnson County football game.
Oh, that's wild.
And so I don't want to over sensationalize what happened, because it was an active shooting. He discharged his weapon 16 times, and it was a pistol. And me, it's ironic. I guess I don't want to say funny, but I've been living around here for a while, and I have never went to a high school football game because I'm not from here. So I'd be like, I'm just here. And like my father-in-law, brother-in-law grew up here. They love going. It's kind of like a thing, like a cultural thing. So the first time I went, man, this dude fought, he literally shot that pistol 16 freaking times. He was right outside the stadium. And I don't know if he was mental or if he was high or I don't know what he was doing, but he pointed his weapon up and just shot it.
Oh, just in the air.
Full clip and one in the chamber.
It was a lot because at first, the first 5, I noticed publicly it didn't register.
Right.
It was like, what was that? It sounded like firecrackers. And then all of a sudden, mass hysteria, screaming, chaos broke out because there was a decent amount of people there. Mm-hmm. Cheerleaders, football players, laying on the ground, running away, elderly people, little babies in strollers and stuff. And I wasn't carrying. I didn't have anything on me, and I hadn't even really been through a course or anything, to, I guess, do safety training and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And, man, in that moment, it was like pure adrenaline and just chaos. And all that to say, I agree with the Second Amendment as well. Because, I mean, in those moments, man, it was wild. I mean, the level of, like, absolute chaos and just not knowing what was happening. Mm-hmm. Because it seemed as if there might have been fire back because, there were so many. But, man, I went and bought my first pistol the next day.
You better do something with it now as far as, like, get an education.
Yeah.
Like people need to get a martial arts education. You better get some education with that.
Yeah, well, and that's, okay, so before we went on that tangent, I was looking on your Instagram, and I noticed you have some tactical stuff that you do.
That's right.
Is that your business, or are you kind of just joining with some
it's been something that I've been doing for a while, as far as from the combative application, as far as like that mixing of fighting with weapons, because people go to the range, they want to talk about how good they can shoot, while they're standing up with their weapon already out. Mm-hmm. They're not drawn from concealment. They're not, practicing, different types of reloads or doing stuff from cover or on the move. And this target is conveniently, as close as 21 feet away and could be out as far as 25 yards. Mm. That's not the way that civilian attacks happen. They happen like this. Mm-hmm. You and me are talking. Mm-hmm. People don't talk from across parking lots. Mm-hmm. People are going to use a ruse. They got to have a reason to get close to you when they want to do harm to you. Hey, so everybody's got a story. We got to start, hey, man, let me talk to you for a minute. Well, that means that you have to be within hearing and talking distance. So how good of a shooter would I have to be? I mean, people should train marksmanship. I'm not saying that they shouldn't. But, like, when the stuff happens, they're gonna come from a certain angle that will give them, from behind you or some sort of elevated position, or they're gonna be they hope that you'll be at a weapon deficit, so they're gonna be the first to draw, things like that. So if somebody's already got the beat on you, what are you gonna do? It's like you don't know that at high noon we're drawn down. You don't know that. This guy's got his story. He's slick. He's got his ruse. And then, boom, out comes the knife or the gun or whatever. It's a fight now. You understand what I'm saying? It's a fight. So how are you going to be able to fight and control your firearm, deploy that firearm, and engage that threat at that moment? So that's what I really specialize in. But at the beginning of the year of 2023, my company, Soul Force Integrations, we're going to start doing live fire training and things like that. We'll be separating it into different components as far as going from intro to pistol. We're going to focus on pistol because we're happy to work with law enforcement. We're happy to work with military. But the focus is going to be making capable, educated civilians. So we'll be having intro to pistol. We'll have a combative pistol for beginner, intermediate combative pistol, an intro to red dot. This is the future's now, so people need to be starting to learn how to fire weapons with red dots. We'll have a performance course where people who are intermediate or more advanced level shooters will be able to come to a performance course, and We'll have some hybrid coursework where when I'm teaching the combatives, where we'll have simunition, which is a marking cartridge. It's not a projectile that will go through you. It won't penetrate. It's like a paintball, kind of, but in a real weapon. That's where we'll get the fighting mixed with the shooting, and we'll be able to do some hybrid courses that might even be multi-day, where we can kind of make a complete responsible armed, citizen.
Dang, that sounds amazing.
Yes.
I'll definitely be signing up.
Yes.
Well, is that, I'm assuming mainly here in Georgia, you're going to be doing a lot of that operation?
That's right. Middle Georgia.
Nice.
Well, we will have a range, and people will come to us.
Nice, man. That is awesome. Wow. That is, I would feel like that is way more useful than like you said, the marksmanship is important, but those real life situations, that's what I would much rather learn than, having my earbuds in and being as comfortable as possible. Because, those situations, the fear and then the mixture of absolute rage.
You talk about like the fear. Fear's good. And when that thing happened and it took you guys a while to observe and orient what was going on, you still didn't really know what was going on. Like you were confused if it was multiple shots from the same gun or if it was some sort of engagement that was happening. Everyone's dropping down, everybody's afraid, and people were reacting to the fear of others, but nobody really actually saw the guy or exactly what was happening. Fear is good. You're gonna either you're gonna have fight, you're gonna have flight, or you're gonna have freeze. 3 Fs. Each one is important. Like people sometimes say, why would you want to freeze? Like, I think that you understand it's in our DNA, where when we were being hunted by saber-toothed tigers and things like that, where we are hunting ourselves, you need to be able to not make so much noise or create a small footprint, so you need to be able to freeze so that way that animal doesn't get away or that predator doesn't know where you are, right? So freeze is important. You can freeze behind cover or concealment in situations where, a danger might be in that area, but fight is important. You should be able to know how to fight for your life. But I tell people, like, if you're not in shape enough to run for your life, what makes you think that you can fight for your life? And it's always these guys that are like 450 pounds who are obese that they think that they're going to be the guy that puts the guy down. It's like, man, it's just delusion. So I tell people, I applaud people who maybe they do have some sort of disability or hindrance or something like that, but they do want to stay armed. That's great. I'm all about it. Stay armed, go train martial arts, do what you got to do. But you need to be fit. How fit? Well, what type of situations are you preparing for? Everybody doesn't have to be a professional athlete. You don't have to go enter a triathlon, But if you can't run 100 yards to cover, sprint, I'm talking about, this is a problem.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there who's thinking about, stepping their game up with firearms or fighting, get fit. Don't get fit before you do these things. Just remember that you should be, if you go train to get a martial arts education, that will get you fit. Okay? It will. Okay? So you can learn jiu-jitsu, or you can go, if you don't have jiu-jitsu in your area, you can go find some other thing like boxing or something like that. And it will get you fit. Don't be the person that says, oh, I'm going to get in shape before I go do that. That's something we hear a lot of, right, John?
Yeah, constantly, and it's aggravating because really, even if you think you're fit, when you get introduced to the situations that martial arts introduce you to, you have no idea how your fight, flight, or freeze responses are going to be, and everyone thinks that they do. But I've seen very, very large, quote unquote, fit individuals lock up in class as far as and absolutely flip because somebody half their size is able to manipulate their body in ways that they didn't think was going to be possible. And so when like when you were talking about the freeze is important, it's the same thing when you're hunting deer.
That's right.
If you make a noise or if a deer hears something, what's the first thing they do? They freeze and assess, and then if you're working in any kind of if you're a first responder or if you're working in an industrial setting, you come across an injured person, you don't just run straight to the person. If you see somebody passed out in the next room, you don't run straight to them. You have to stop and assess what's going on, because there might be a gas that passed.
That's right. Out. Some sort of inhalation of a substance. Yeah.
So there's always, and the only way to know those kind of things is to be educated on it. And then those people that are educating you put you in situations where, it's, replicating those types of scenarios. And so that's essentially what, most martial arts educators do.
And just think about that. If you're that person that's saying, I need to get in shape before I come in, one, we know why you're saying that. One, you're embarrassed of your current in shapeness, and two, you're afraid that soccer mom might jack you up, or that's the actual situation. But
if she will,
if you think about what you're saying, would you ever say, oh yeah, my kid is too stupid for school, I'm gonna teach him before I send him there? You know how stupid you sound, right? That sounds dumb.
Yeah.
Because school gets you smart or smartish, right? There's other stuff to learn. Yeah. But if you go, train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu with us, we are going to get you in shape. You're going to come. You're not going to be good. That's that. Mm-hmm. You can't be good at anything until you do it. You can have potential. You might be a natural. Neither of those things is good. Neither one. So just kind of get that out. Come on in and see us. We'll get you spun up. We will get you in shape. You are going to be put in some situations that are maybe be uncomfortable in the beginning, as far as you've never been placed in this type of thing, or you might have thought like these people that were talking about, if that was me, I'd do this. But you're only saying that. You're not actually validating that. We are going to validate it for you. We're going to make it fun for you. You are going to get in shape doing it, and you're going to get fired up and just as passionate as me and John are about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, because I experienced that fight or flight or freeze when I sparred for the first time.
In Muay Thai?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got kicked in the stomach really hard. And I yelled the F word. Yeah. And I got yelled at for yelling the F word.
Yeah.
But there was a 7-year-old around, but I mean, come on, he's probably heard that before,
For sure.
But I'm not saying I cuss around kids. That sounds crazy. But anyways, it was incredibly humbling for me in that moment, because I have done a lot of traditional weightlifting, like squat, like bro splits, most of my life, just working out. And I never had that different strain you guys are talking about. Now, of course, I don't know jiu-jitsu. It's probably a whole nother ballgame when someone's on top of you, or you're rolling or just held down. But when I had to stand up and look another man in the eyes and continue to fight after he punched me in my nose incredibly hard, or even if I got the wind knocked out of me or something for the first time, God, I don't know, 10 years maybe. Mm-hmm. It was a very surreal moment of, it pushed me to a new level that I hadn't experienced psychologically and physically all in the same moment.
And that's how, in jiu-jitsu, in jiu-jitsu schools, there's always a real strong community and camaraderie that people feel with one another, because you're not the only one getting smashed. Mm. Everybody, every time we have rolling, or that's what the sparring for jiu-jitsu, they're all winning and losing every night. Not one person just comes in and wins every engagement. At some point, they are going to be losing, and in that, you and the peers, those people that you're sharing the mats with, they are creating a strong sense of humility, because you're facing the fact that you're not that type. You are not the man, or you ain't the woman. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's everything that you do will be validated, and people have mutual respect for other people that are there doing the same things they are. We'll call it shared suffering, if you will. That nobody suffers when they come to jiu-jitsu. You know, if you need a break on the side, you take a break. We're here to get you where you want to be. But when I say suffering, it's like you get put in uncomfortable spots. You'll be mounted on, or you'll be mounted. Somebody will be on top of you. You're not having a good time. You're not winning in that moment. But thank goodness nobody's raining down punches or elbows. We're simulating that type of environment, but you have to be able to what? Stay calm in that type of situation. Your reaction in the beginning will be like, you know, the adrenaline might spike, or you might do a big umph to try to get out of that, and then you end up putting yourself in a worse spot. So you got to be able to stay calm, stay collected, problem solve in those moments, work your way out. And people like that. People like to see others, like-minded people who want to put themselves in these types of spots, that don't want to talk about it, but they want to actually validate where their skills are.
Yes, sometimes you're the nail and sometimes you're the hammer.
That's right.
Yeah, because that tensing up, I experienced that firsthand. It was last summer, and it was my maybe third time. I did it really a lot when I first started sparring, because I trained. Again, it was, I don't know if I'd consider it educational, but I trained, I'd say a good 3 to 6 months. I mean, nothing crazy. But the initial, like, hit and, like, exposure to that physical trauma that I had not experienced in that setting caused me to almost, like, not breathe, maybe, I think would be a way to put it.
Okay.
And just, like, tense up and then try to go harder. But then after, God, I'd say, like, 30 seconds of that, at that point, with how in shape I was, it was rough.
Most people who are quote unquote in shape, after 30 seconds, they're in an actual like martial arts situation, they usually tire out. That's why we talk about like we'll get you in shape for that, because, and even like altercations, you know, out on the street, every street conflict that I've ever seen has ended rather quickly. You know, it's usually, you know, and the ironic thing is that if it lasts over that 30-second part, that's when you'll see a swing sometimes, like in the momentum of the actual fight, and you'll see that person who just start to get tired, and then the person who's able to kind of push through that end up, and these are people who don't know what they're doing. Obviously, it's just kind of a primal clash of, it looks like toddlers falling sometimes now, like to me, when I see two people who don't understand what they're doing actually like try to have a physical altercation. And plus, if you do come across that as like as an adult, when you actually see like two adult people fighting, like is there not like a part of you that's just like how did it even get to this part?
What are y'all doing?
What are you doing? Like,
Yes, you're grown.
Does everybody, like, do you not have to go to work tomorrow? Like, is there?
Oh, that's so funny and true.
Yeah. So I mean, So and I relayed this to a lot of the female students that we have come in, which we have a lot of them, and you know, in both Bonaire and Dublin, and the Dublin female student population is growing at a nice pace, and that's one of the first things that they realize is that yes, they may be going up against somebody who is a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger, for a short period of time. And so in self-defense tactics and the techniques that you use, really it's all about survival more than anything, because you're getting to that point of survival. And survival, when we think of it as like oh, I got beat up, but I lived. And that was always one of the things that my coach was always trying to relay to me from the self-defense aspect of it, was like, it's like, hey, yeah, you're losing, but you're not dying.
That's right. I've got 3 rules that I always tell the students. I say, number one, don't die. This is like your order of prioritization. Right. 1, don't die. 2, take as little damage as possible. Number 3 is look cool. So like, as long as you covered the first 2 bases as far as your order of prioritization, everything after that, you're looking cool. You might be doing the one that's winning, but those first 2 things have to be the focus.
Well, and like, John, with your coming up through the progression of belts and the experience you had there,
right?
Did you Do people compete to
Yes.
get further along in their belts? I would imagine that's kind of how the system works.
Not necessarily like competing is not going to get you promoted faster because you might not be ready, or you know, just because you compete doesn't mean you're good.
Not by
there's a lot
not by
of,
us.
there's a lot of people who quote unquote are like, you know, compete and they make it, and like that doesn't mean that they're actually, you know, good.
I see.
And so, but like we do encourage competition, and that's one of the things about, again, we keep coming back to this word education. Like, I want it, if somebody comes in a competition style of submission grappling is in their mindset, you know, it's my job to educate and facilitate that. If somebody comes in and their mindset is strictly self-defense, it's my job to educate and facilitate that. And if someone is wanting to go that route, then yes, like there's a slight variation on the not the techniques, the type of training we'll do to get you ready for the competition, and or maybe the strategy that suits your body style or your aggression level, whatever the case may be. There's just slight tweaks to the way that we would train somebody on that. But yeah, I competed as a white, blue, and purple belt, and I don't think I've competed since I was a purple belt. That was about 2014 or so. Yeah, it was about time. I've pretty much been coaching since then.
I see. So, is it kind of is it more of a time frame as far as training, and I'm assuming the quality?
It's time,
Combination.
it's ability, it's knowledge. I mean, these are kind of the three things that you have to have. And I think that me and John both agree, like, again, the education aspect. When people are good, I don't care. Like, you're fit-ish, right? But
That's a good word for it.
How old are you?
29.
Okay. So we've got a gentleman who's 52 years old, served in 2 wars, back is all jacked up. He won't be able to do on the mats what you can do day in and day out. So why would I hold you and him to the same standard? If I did hold you to the same standard, it should be knowledge. It should be your technical ability to replicate that knowledge to us, to show us that you're paying attention. But if you're good, hey, this is me clapping. Good for you. Good for you. You're so good, but if you don't know nothing and your being good is based off of your stature or youth or any of these things are going to fade. And when they do, what are you going to be left with? You're going to be the guy with the 45 ACP outside the waistband, 1911, going, all I need is this right here.
Yeah, full circle.
And here we come, So come and learn how to do it. And this is for jiu-jitsu. One of the things I want to talk about is like, it's a grappling martial art. I'm not going to say that it doesn't mean that there's no striking in jiu-jitsu, but when we train it, we won't be striking each other, right? Well, people are like, well, I'm more of a boxing or kickboxing guy. And then, but then you say like, well, how many fights have you had? And they tell you, most people will say none. Okay. So what do you mean you're a boxer or a kickboxing guy? Well, if in a fight, I would just do this, they're going to say something like that, right?
Uh-huh.
And then, so what are you training for? Self-defense. Okay. So if you're trying to defend yourself, and we do agree that you should be able to try to, like I said, we know what 2 adults look like, how silly they look when they're doing this type of thing, right?
Yes.
Well, so how many times have you seen dudes square up? I'm not talking about on video. I'm talking about like 2 dudes square up and they just do a striking bout right in front of you.
Yeah, they just roll up their sleeves.
Some dude gets cracked.
Gangs in New York.
Somebody gets cracked, and what happens? Shirts start being grabbed, headlocks start being done. We are grappling in that environment now. Okay, so if you're, it is a concern for men, but we hear this a lot with the females. Is you want to be able to defend yourself. You want to be able to get out of some tough situations. So that you might have to try to break contact and get away. If you're running, Have you ever seen or heard a testimony from anybody that was running for their life and someone was running next to them, just punching them in the face? This is not how it happens. People will grab you, and you need to know how to prevent those grips from being broken. You need to be able to know how to grab back. You need to be able to, again, survive, take as little damage as possible, and then anything after that, you're going to be looking cool. And they're called snatch and grabs.
Right.
They're not called snatch and box you up.
Yeah.
You know.
I love this pause there. You bleeped it out yourself.
Yeah,
that's
That
right.
was awesome.
That's
I got
right.
a bleep button.
Yeah, that's somebody
explicit.
who teaches kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The that, I mean, it's hilarious. I read an article not long ago, and it was talking about how the average person, or the average man, is 3,000% less effective in a fight than their actual ego tells them in their head.
I saw that as well.
And I don't know how they came up with that.
3,000%?
Yeah, I don't know how they came up with that number. But
3,000.
just in my experience, like I read it and I was like, "Yep, it's probably true." You know,
I bet.
I mean, but again, you go back to, like say, we're a grappling art, and of course, like, you know, the grappling, like this was solved, I thought, in 1993.
Yeah, me too.
Like Hoist Gracie versus like
Every
Art
other-
Jimmerman, every other martial art.
Yeah.
Like I thought this was already established that, hey, and I always tried to, like, I wouldn't call it a sales pitch, but like when I had people like that did a little bit of jiu-jitsu but really focused on boxing and Muay Thai and then wanted to do MMA, I always they would only want to learn the submissions of jiu-jitsu, and the submissions are like dessert. It's really, that's the last thing that matters when it comes to the actual, like, how did you get yourself in the position where you can choke someone or you can, you know, break a limb or whatever the case may be. I always used to try to describe it as, hey man, jiu-jitsu is the art in between all the other arts. So while you're striking and someone is closing the distance or retreating, that's jiu-jitsu. While you are pivoting on your lead leg and someone is putting themselves in a position where you can't pivot on that leg, and that's jiu-jitsu. When you fall down and you're getting up and you don't want to get hit getting up, that's jiu-jitsu. Having the glue that kind of puts everything together will help aid you in for your MMA or whatever your goals are. And I would say it that, and in my head I'm sitting there just trying to think like no, this person's ego is not going to have them understand, and they're always going to be at this level in terms of, like, they'll get better at the arts that they're practicing the most. But again, it's effectiveness and just education, because I ultimately want to be coaching people who eventually will be good teachers themselves, that can pass on the arts, effectively and the right way.
That's right.
A lot of people will try to jump into coaching really fast. I was put in a situation where I had to coach. And so my focus from there was trying to be the best coach I could be. Be a service to the people that were depending on me to do that. So I focused more on that. At the same time, if I'm talking to a student, and I know a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu community are really, they don't like tests. Like, they were like, oh, your test is on the mat. Like, you should be able to show what you know, like, just in sparring and rolling. And I got tested throughout my entire jiu-jitsu, like, rank system. Cole and I do tests, and they're not what people would associate with tests, and most of them, they're all closed door sessions just between the people that are testing and the coaches. It's not like, we don't bring in parents or we don't really test the kids too much. We just but as an adult, no, I want to know what you know. And so when people say that they're, like, not a good test taker, it's like, I understand you're not good at the thing that we actually find out how much you know about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll cater the test to like as a good coach, I'm going to like try to ask the right questions that I know you may be able to answer in your own voice.
And also, you're testing because you're ready to test.
Exactly.
So if you think you're going to say, oh, I'm not ready, now you're telling me and John that we don't know what we're talking about.
Is that happening a lot?
Not a cool move.
Yeah, no, not at all.
You know,
God, is it like a? Are you guys standing there like asking them questions, or is it kind of like a paper?
It's kind of like both. It's like I ask questions, and then you have to do like demonstrate certain moves or movements or series of depending on what belt level you're at. You know,
Yeah.
so
It's a completely, it's almost like we have to, because certain people I need to know more. If you're an athlete, and this was how I got brought up too, is like if. Like my coach would see me and then see another student who's been training longer or the same amount of time. Well, he would see me do the move and he would see them do the move. All right, well, we know that this person that I might be training with, they may be, I might have been 25 years old and they might have been, like say, 50 years old. So naturally right then and there, the bell curve was a little different physically for me. Like he already knew I could do all the moves. He wanted to see what I knew. And so the answers that I would give or the way I would approach, the strategy, and that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people understand, that what makes Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in particular the effective art that it is. It's because the techniques have been around for a long time. I mean, we can get into that, but literally hundreds of years, the same techniques have existed. Okay, what Brazilian Jiu Jitsu has done, in particularly because of its roots in Vale Tudo and one-on-one combat in Brazil, it's the strategy behind the moves, understanding distance controls damage, understanding where to place your hips, where the strongest parts of your body versus the weakest parts of theirs, the maximum efficiency versus minimal effort type of approach to combat, and that's what learning that strategy is a constant evolution. Because like I say, Cole may be watching me roll with another student. And, this person might have been training for 10 years and I might have been training for 15 or 16. And, at the end of the match, we're off on the side and, he can point out things that I did wrong. You know what I mean? Or I might have already known that I did it wrong before I even get to the side. And I'm like, and I'll say, I put my knee in the wrong place right there and didn't have my weight distribution right. And it's like, all right, well, and then all of a sudden it turns into a laboratory where the person that you just had this grueling match with is now going over the things that they either beat you with or you beat them with.
And that's like where we get into the different types of benefits of jiu-jitsu. I have a good friend, Adam Redzovic, and he talks about the benefits that people come for jiu-jitsu. One is physical stimulation. They want the workout, right? They want to be able to sweat. They want to be able to get conditioned and get in shape. That's the physical portion. That's the physical stimulation. Then you have the intellectual stimulation. And that's what John's talking about right now. It's like we are going to now nerd out over the details, because details matter. Details matter in anything for anyone that's a high performer. And even if you're not a high performer, you would like to think of yourself as one, I would hope. I hope that you don't want to think of yourself as a low performer. And I'm not talking about based off of your status in life or what your job is or whatever. I think that you want to try to be a good parent. You want to try to be a good school teacher or whatever your job is, manager at Kohl's Clothing. You want to be a high performer. So the intellectual stimulation people are getting a lot of in jiu-jitsu. Oh, I noticed if you get a little bit more on your hip, that now the move becomes twice as effective. over 2 inches of movement to get further on your hip. Little things like that. And then also there's a deeper rabbit hole of techniques and systems and new things being invented all the time within or variations of old things being invented all the time within jiu-jitsu. And people will, again, nerd out. They want to go to seminars. Or they want to buy these DVDs. Or have you seen this new guy on the scene that's doing this? Let's troubleshoot that. Let's see if we can validate that. Or how would you get out of this? Like, people get intellectual stimulation. And then there's another component, which is like it can kind of be put into the same, but they can also be separate, the emotional or spiritual stimulation, right? We get an emotional stimulation, which it's partial workout, right? Get the endorphins going, but you get an emotional stimulation again with that shared suffering, that's community, okay? And that's where it kind of ties into the spiritual, the emotional, spiritual stimulation. So you're around these people who are helping you. You, like I said, you're simulating some form of combat in there. But I say it's best to be bruised by our friends than broken by our enemies. You know, so we're in there doing the same things, and somebody might, quote, beat you that day. You have no idea what a service they've done for you in helping you validate your skills and showing you what you're good or not good at. And so forth and so on. You know, it's just a very powerful martial art. I can't say that. I can say that there's no other martial art that after training 12 months, you can take out 80% of the world's population. And like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is the only thing like this that I have ever seen.
Wow. That is...
Yeah. The main thing that that my coach used to say is that I always liked was make nice guys tough and tough guys nice. And your training partners or in our case our students end up becoming, we want them to be so good that they end up becoming our training partners, where when I want to train, I'm like, no, I'm going to get this person that I've been teaching for 5 or 6 years, and like, come on, give me a good role. And we like you say, troubleshoot, we evaluate each other. It turns into a laboratory of simulated violence. And these people are some of the nicest people that you'll ever come across.
That's
and
right.
From all walks of life. And
all walks.
That's the thing. You'll have somebody coming in and they'll be a like a narcotics like drug officer. Okay, and then they're sparring with somebody who is probably used to smoke weed at some point. That
right.
got arrested 6 months ago, right? And they're trying to change some things up, and now they're on the mat together. I've actually had that happen where I was training an officer, and somebody that he arrested in the past on drug charges, actually came in and was just trying to turn their life around in some way, and there they are,
There's
training on the
school
mat.
teachers, college students, doctors, attorneys, guys that are blue collar workers. I mean, there's literally there's every type of person, because we offer something for those people. And like John was just saying, like we trying to bring them to our level. I think that this is where me and John maybe are not unique, but I think that it's something that is not super prevalent, is that we try to create peers. Like we want to get crushed. We want to create free thinkers who will bring new problems to us to create that we have to solve and things like that. So I think that's the one thing that might make us not your normal school. We don't try to like when you come as a student, we are grateful, but we don't want to have you as a lifelong student. We want to have you eventually get to the point where you're showing us stuff and teaching us stuff, because we are lifelong students.
And I bet the relational bond over, like you said, if you rolled with someone after training them for 5-6 years, because there is something about that shared suffering that brings people together.
You end up as a jiu-jitsu coach, unfortunately, and this is other avenues. I know, like I think y'all had some guests from CrossFit, not long ago, and I think I listened to that episode and another episode from somebody who might have been actually in the medical, had a medical background, but like once you have somebody that you've coached, and I now we've had people that coached from kids to adults, and I'm watching these these people go off to college or even graduate college and then come back, and now they're like a grown person with grown people problems, and so people don't tend to be real quick to go to therapy. But they'll tell you, their jiu-jitsu coach about their problems sometimes.
Oh yeah, I know. Me and John have heard it all.
Yeah, and I'm like, and half the conversations are like, because I don't want to say that jiu-jitsu is therapeutic. It's cathartic. There's a difference between the two, and if you do need some sort of help, then go get some help. But I found myself being the help. Whereas I'm like, hey man, like, you've known me for a decade. You know that I'm not the person to ask this question to. You know what I mean? Like, they'll be coming to me for like relationship advice. I'm like, hey man, like I'm like,
yeah, you don't go to you don't go to a boxing coach for jiu-jitsu lessons,
exactly,
right?
So and so like you understand these people, the problems that they've had, the deaths in families and things like that, and you're there with them the whole time, and so there's a different interconnectional bond between teammates and coaches and students, and like I say, they become peers, and it's just like it's the most team-oriented individual sport there is, if that makes sense. Because when it's time to have a fight, when it's time to have a competition, or when you're out there, actually having to defend yourself, you're by yourself. I see you have the man in the arena quote on the wall, like you're by yourself. Well, that's the thing. Like, you're really not. You've got everybody who's ever helped you along the way there with you, if you can get your mind wrapped around that. And I know in Japan, where jiu-jitsu actually originates, there is a culture of honor, but not honoring yourself and your family and your team, and conducting yourself in that manner. And I know that for me personally, I try to do that too. Like from a mental standpoint. And I don't come out and tell my students that that's what I want them to do, that to understand that, hey, that's your training partner there. Like, I understand you've got certain goals, but they've got certain goals too. So, we have to, cultivate these students to where, yes, they have individual goals, and then they work around a team, and they understand that the team gets them to their goals. Wow. But I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, and like, if within those goals, somebody who wants to be a top tier competitor,
right,
and then somebody else who's just trying to figure out how to do the forward roll right, like,
just trying not to get hurt.
You can't crush that person trying to figure out that forward roll. Wouldn't you like that person to come back tomorrow so you have somebody to roll with? You can't do this as just a one man band. This is not how it works. So we need one another. And also you'll find, like, maybe you're out. You like to go to company supply. You like to have a beer and an appetizer, but you're by yourself. And
had a man approach me last time.
And somebody comes in and just says something to you, and you're just not really liking the vibe, or maybe he's got a couple other people with it, and you feel outnumbered. You'll literally find somebody who you go to jiu-jitsu. Well, hey, what's up, John? How you doing? All right, and that's like, you didn't show up together, but it definitely helps to have that community, and it'll be with people that are not necessarily in your peer group. Like I said, it could be like a 60-year-old man and a 18-year-old just graduated. These two people would not have in any other environment become friends, nor even had a conversation with one another. And now the two of you guys can connect, or girls can connect on a completely different level and just nerd out over that same topic of conversation. It's Absolutely. Unlike anything else.
Yes, and I think the best way to put it, from what I'm hearing, I feel like what separates, because I don't want to say cult is a very strong word, but sometimes when people get on like fitness I guess, endeavors, whatever the different variation that may be, from CrossFit to traditional bodybuilding or jiu-jitsu, whatever. There's a level of, like you're talking about, that communal sense and whatnot. But it seems like a lot of what you guys are saying, the leadership is even rooted in humility.
Yeah, and with the cult, you have somebody who is trying to control other people. But within what we promote is self-control. So you don't control another person. You only control yourself, and that's it. So our community differs from a cult, but it is similar to maybe what the type of feeling that other people get from going to their church, right? And some people, we have plenty of people that go to church and go to jiu-jitsu, but some people might not, religion's not their thing or not their thing yet, or they just don't like being around large groups of people. Maybe they go to a bigger church, or they don't like singing, or the message doesn't resonate with them, but they get the same things from jiu-jitsu. So I'm not advocating jiu-jitsu over religion, but it is like you're saying, you can get a lot of the same benefits because of that sense of community and the lessons that you learn from jiu-jitsu and that you learn about yourself.
Yeah, because that, I would imagine, I've never done jiu-jitsu, but just from my experience with Muay Thai and the training end of it, it was cathartic, and like I would leave from there because, it was a no AC building and we would spar a lot. And that was a great feeling, even physically. And now one of my best friends, if not my best friend, is the guy I fought the most. We have punched each other in the face so many times, and I love that, man.
You learn a lot about them and you, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was a wild time. But now, with what you guys have going on, you said it was in Bon Air, the other location.
Yeah, it's called Miller Martial Arts. It's on 96 and Moody Road. That's in Bon Air.
And that was your first one that you started?
That's right. So like after I finished at the UFC, I had already wanted to open up a school, but I was kind of in that spot where I'm an all or nothing type of person. I don't want to put 50% here, 50% there. I feel like I can do that now, but then I couldn't do it. I just wasn't ready to do that. Now I have a much more healthy stance where I can focus on family. I can focus on this team. I can focus on other business opportunities. I feel like I don't have a great management of it, but I can actually do it and attempt it now. But I wasn't ready then. So I wasn't kind of happy with my situation. I did want to open up a school, and I was just kind of waiting for the right time, and the right time came along in 2017, and I opened up the school. And I think, I had talked to John about going to Dublin years back. We
did, yeah. We
And
had a couple conversations about it.
we just weren't at the spot where we could do something and I saw a lot of potential in Dublin. I know it's a small town now, but it's like one of the fastest growing cities, and it's a beautiful area. And one of the things that we share in common is making a maximum impact. So this community doesn't have anything like this, and we are here, so we're first there, and we're trying to increase that footprint so we can make that maximum impact, and we are going to continue to do it. So we're definitely vested in this community and pretty happy with how things are going thus far.
Yeah, I've been floating from Perry to Dublin when I had my academy, and I had about 6 to 8 students in this area that were that were coming to me and Perry, and they were constantly taking what we were doing there and training and things of that nature. So those first initial conversations with Cole were probably 2017 or
yeah,
2018.
it was a while back.
Yeah, where we were like, hey, you've got all those students in Dublin, and Dublin is a really, it's a really kind of cool town, I mean, like the growth that we've seen, it reminds me a lot of what Perry's, trajectory and things like that. And the downtown area is gorgeous.
I love where we're located.
Yeah,
it is so cool.
Spot. We're on West Jackson Street, and when I walk out, either coming to or leaving class, and the lights are on downtown. Yeah. And people are walking down the street, and there's 3 or 4 good locations to go and grab a bite real quick. We usually shoot over to Company Supply and, like say, have a post-training beer together and talk or whatever the case may be.
Nice.
But, when we do like our open mats on Saturdays and things of that nature, we'll congregate. But like, the location is neat and it's unique. The school is, our actual school inside the building is unique too. But, overall it's, when Cole and I, every conversation that we've ever had is always centered around, when we say not being a trainer, but being an educator when it comes to operating an academy. And that's one thing that like Cole has grown the most at, because coming from the UFC, like I say, he would stop in at my old academy and train with me, and I was like, oh, and we were always excited. Hey, Cole texts me, he's going to come in and train. So we always knew we were going to get some really great training, and he was going to, he might even have some cool stuff that he picked up to show, that they might have been working at an American Top Team. But then over from 2017 to 2022 now, I've seen a progression in his coaching ability. And like I say, that all-in thing, that has been really fun for me to watch, because, he's becoming he's become the top-tier coach in Middle Georgia now. And so from my perspective, like, as a peer of his, that's been exciting for me. And at that same time, I've seen, because that's not always the case. You see a lot of people have so much potential, or a lot of people who are really good at jiu-jitsu, and then they don't give back. And giving back is, or people like say rush into coaching.
That's really common.
Yeah.
Somebody has an athletic background and then they just jump into coaching. It's like, but they might have been ability or genetically based, so they didn't have the technical knowledge to support it, and they rushed into it, and they're going to go through some real growing pains.
They will. Yeah, and I went through them.
Me too.
I went through them as a coach. But like I said, I was forced into coaching out of necessity, but at the same time, like, I had a good mentor to guide me in that direction and in the right directions, to understand that, hey, you're not teaching people how to be like you and your abilities and your strategies and your content. You're teaching jiu-jitsu. And eventually, when you're building a house and you're laying the foundation, you have a solid foundation, everything else is easy. So those first few years of training, we're building a really strong foundation. And then as you get into the upper belts, it's almost like, you're first you're an infant, or you're not even or whatever. And then as you're growing and you're going into these higher ranks, and maybe you've competed a few times. Well, now you're a teenager. Now you're an adolescent. Now, and it's kind of, like people don't understand that you have to learn how to learn.
My sensei has a much more demeaning version. We're like, the white belt is an amoeba, so like you're nothing, And like when you get to black belt, you're now an infant. You're a baby.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So there's some other things between amoeba and baby that are, you wouldn't want to be called those things.
Everything in between.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like it's so much of even just life would be, or I guess a better way to put it would be, a lot of incredible life lessons could be learned through training, like you guys are talking about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Rooted in the different philosophies, and even just some of the amount of one-liners on this one is the different, sayings and whatnot that are
happen all the time.
Well, it's so good. I'm over here like, man, I need to write this down.
Well, one thing that I always try to, if somebody asks me, what's the difference between a somewhat advanced student and a somewhat beginner student? I was like, well, an advanced student usually has more than one answer. So let's say that you're trapped in a certain position. An advanced student would have 2 to 3 strategies of escape. Okay. Well, a brand new person only has what they know which would be one avenue of escape, right? Well, like if you're walking into a real estate deal, okay, let's say as an investor, and let's say that you're the agent, and they're actually looking to you for advice on things. Well, this is one of the things that I'll use whenever I'm talking to somebody, because I'm not trying to convince them to get into the deal. We just talk. Well, what's your exit strategy? All right, because you're going to be married, you're going to be trapped into this investment. What's your exit strategy? If they only have one exit strategy, where it makes them money at the end, say, well, let's regroup, because really a good investor, and I'm using real estate because we both involved in it, but I've used this as an example to a certain extent. A good investor would need 2 to 3 exit strategies. Say, all right, you're going to buy this property. Well, are you going to just rent it out? Okay. Well, what's the payment versus the actual rent market in the area? Okay. Well, does Airbnb have a market? Okay. Can you lease own it to somebody? Can you flip it? Is there, so like those are exit strategies to make you money on the deal. If somebody comes into a deal with only one strategy, it's usually not a sound investment. And I take that like lesson and I learned through jiu-jitsu and apply it to all avenues of life. If I'm making a decision on something, there's got to be and it doesn't have to be, an investment, but it could be a health thing. It's like, well, what's going to be my plan here? Okay. Like, how am I going to get there? Are you going to structure it, and then you create avenues of, I wouldn't say escape in those, scenarios, but avenues that, hey, if this isn't working, then we're going to go to this. We're going to go to this. Almost like backup plans, but not in the context of the all or nothing. He enjoys that.
I just like that when you referred to the property, you said you're married or trapped. I like that.
Yeah. Well, it depends on which student I'm talking to. It's like, again, I've been their therapist. I know whether they're married or trapped.
You got to know your audience, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, man, that is incredible. I'm definitely excited to see what you guys continue to expand into, because I know
there's some athletes in this area.
For sure. Yeah.
And then there's other people who aren't athletes that need jiu-jitsu. Like we're excited about the potential of Dublin Jiu-Jitsu and the potential of the impact around the people that and like what they can achieve, but they're being involved in the area and having the gym almost operating we're coming up on a year. There's definitely people that need jiu-jitsu, and so we're kind of excited.
For sure, man.
We're very excited, but we're again, it's like this could go in multiple directions. Where we facilitate, we're already facilitating multiple people's goals, but it could go there. Like there's so much potential on where it could go, and then we can flow with it.
Yeah, because that it was big news, at least for me, because I've always been very interested.
So big, yet you haven't come in to take part in a 1-week trial that we have.
That's
I
right,
know,
yeah.
man. I'm sorry.
It's huge.
I'm not going to give you my excuse because I feel like you're going to roast me. So
let me guess, you want to get in shape before you come in and see us.
that's what I was going to say. I just really want to be able to run a mile in 5 minutes,
I will say this is one thing that we've been really prideful on, and that's the level of coaches that we've been bringing in, because Cole and I can't coach every class. I'm down there coaching once or twice a week. I have a student, Mac, who is a really incredible coach.
Yeah, he's our local asset. He's phenomenal.
He's really great, and we've had a few people who have ranked. They may have trained years ago, that like realized that we were coming in the area, and they knew that we were coming in the area. The rumors, like say first, years ago we talked about it. So there was a little bit of buzz within the very, very small jiu-jitsu community that was already here, but you know, we've been able to facilitate coaching. Like one of my students, Tim Blue, who's a brown belt under me, has been coming in and coach. And then the other night, you know, our coach, we had a coaching shortage, and we were able to bring in a pro MMA fighter, Jesse James Wallace, who trains with us at Miller Martial Arts, and he's our team mom.
Yeah, and he's a brown belt as well, and very skilled.
Very, very skilled, and Jesse, who has coached there before at Dublin before for us, like he said, "Hey, I heard that, you know, such and such can't make it to the class. Can I come down there and coach a class for you?" And and the excitement, not only from the students, you know what I mean, of having, you know, hey, we're gonna have this pro MMA fighter who's, you know, who's a really great coach, come in because they have met him, because we're, you know, again, it's a team oriented thing. That's been one thing that I've been really proud of. Like, you're not coming in there and getting people. We're not just throwing somebody in there to teach a class. Everyone's vetted. This is an academy of learning. You know, this isn't a place where you're coming to get training. You know,
it's not like the guy from Napoleon. You guys remember that? You ever seen Napoleon Dynamite?
Yes.
You think Starlight goes home scared? He's wearing the American flag.
Rex Kwando.
Rex Kwando.
Old Rex.
Yeah, we have a student named Rex. He's
He's not like that guy.
He's not like that guy.
Man,
No.
that would be awesome.
No, we love Rex. Yeah.
What was that guy's wife, Cheryl, or something like that?
Oh, I can't remember. It was so
Wanda,
funny.
Yeah, she was like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Starla.
Starlight. Yeah, Starlight.
Starlight goes home scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually follow Jesse on social media. I've talked to him on the phone once when I was, oh God, I feel like I'm going to get roasted for saying
Did you inquire?
Yeah.
I did, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's I mean, he's going to be a 2-time team mom of the year.
Did he set you up with set you up with an
2-time.
intro that you no-showed to?
Yeah.
No, I didn't make it that far.
Okay.
I didn't ghost anyone like that, but I talked to him over the phone. He kind of explained the process because I was very interested. I have 2 younger children. My wife stays home with them.
Right.
And
So you have no excuses.
I have no excuse. If you guys are. But
Cole can attest that because I've got 4 girls.
Yeah.
Girl dad. Look at there. Me too.
Yeah, and you know Professor Bubby Mitchell in Macon, he's got 3 girls.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
And he started a business when he already had the kid. I mean, like,
Yeah.
That's
you know,
how-
there's
yeah.
no excuses here.
Yeah. My children were basically have been raised in these gyms. And the thing is that, like, in my old academy in Perry didn't have any climate control. And it was pretty rough.
Toasty.
It was very toasty, very cold. And they talk about that. And I've noticed that, like, people's memories of suffering are almost usually associated with like, hey, I endured that, and it actually becomes a positive. Some of my best stories were like something that, like, while I was doing it, it was terrible, and then coming out, persevering out of it. Now I have, you know, but like, I don't remember like random parties that I went to, or like hey, remember that thing that you did when we were at the bar, like, you know, 15 years ago? It's like, no. You know, but I remember that really rough day of training.
The crappy times, yeah.
Right. And knowing that I got through that.
Yes. Yeah. I've been watching. I don't say watching, but I think Jesse had a fight recently that he won.
He did.
Big deal.
He did.
Yeah.
He came back after having a little bit of a layoff, and he trained good for it. I was proud for him, and he went in there and he did his job.
That's awesome, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He. And I actually, after I talked to him, he kind of explained to me some of his story on the phone. He probably doesn't even remember, but I went and watched, I think, a few of his fights on YouTube. And I think a lot of his wins were the armbar. A lot of them. Or at least the ones that I saw.
Yeah, I mean,
Probably.
he's got a lot of different submission wins: triangles, arm bars, guillotines, rear naked chokes. I mean, he's a stud.
Yeah, that's impressive, man. I tell you, he. I noticed when I inquired, because I talked to you too. You said
Yeah, we had a really good conversation. Yeah.
Oh God,
Yeah,
I'm be like Haley, I'm
I
joining.
thought I had him. I was like, yeah, man, we're gonna have a new student coming in. Yeah.
I'll have to somehow bring my daughters or something? Because I remember you said that your daughters would come and mop up and stuff, or just hang out.
And we have a downstairs lobby area. It was the old Stone Horse Tavern.
Yeah.
So like we kept the bar and everything. We'll have a coffee machine behind there eventually. But
nice.
My kids come in there downstairs. They'll do homework and things like that. And it's all relative.
Yeah.
But at the old facility, I had a spot for them, which again, like I would make them train too, and that's the thing. Like that was the one thing about my kids is they want daddy alone training them by themselves. They don't want 30 kids, out there on the mat, and like because I give all my attention to those kids, and then they're like, "Daddy," I'm like, "Hey, I'm not your daddy right now."
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
like this is Coach John right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is we're training. I'm trying to make a positive impact on the youth, and trying to teach them how to eliminate their enemies, and that's just how I think being that girl dad. Mm-hmm. They don't like sharing me.
Oh, yes.
That kind of thing.
I bet. Wow. Yeah, because I want to put my daughters through jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm. Right now, we're offering programs where they start at 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
If once those classes start to really push through, we'll probably offer like a teeny tiny tykes or whatever we're going to call it, in the future. But we start at 6 years old right now. We go all the way up to 15 years old. If you've got a massive 15-year-old child, we will put them in the adult program,
right.
But we start at 6 and we go up from there, and that's at 5:30 on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for now. And then we have the open mat on Saturday, which it's not formal instruction. There is a coach there is someone qualified there, but that's more like where you drill maybe the things you did earlier that week. You can ask questions, or you can just roll live.
I see. So that's what the open mats are Saturday. It's mainly
right. It's the time to either, like say, come in and drill the things that people worked on, or like most people are that's their sparring time. Because not everybody can stay in open mat or spar after every class. We tend to roll and spar after every class.
They put in 3 5-minute rounds,
right,
but then they got to go.
Yeah.
Well, this is if you want to come in and you want to do 8 5s, or you want to do 2 5s and then talk and ask questions or drill a little bit, then come back to it. It's open mat. You get to do, again, it's informal.
Yeah.
Coaches are going to be like, do that. You get to do what you want to do. Yeah. And then our adult classes, they start at 6:30 on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Nice.
So 5:30 to 6:30, 6:30 to 7:30.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So I got 2 more years until my oldest can join.
Unless you can join today.
Like Haley, I signed up.
And if you mention this podcast, we'll give you a free 1-week trial. That's usually $25.
Wow.
So you can call John after this today,
yeah,
John, and you can say, "Hey, I'm just drop the podcast," and then we'll know.
I'll do it. This is the motivation I needed, because I was trying to get in shape before I came. Just kidding.
I'm gonna throw this coffee cup.
Don't do it, because I can't wrestle you, or you either. Yeah. So I know we kind of slowly ran over, but it's been great chatting with you guys, man. I'm very excited to see the continued progression. I don't know Mac, but a lot of the people I know Mac from around here, and he has a great reputation.
Yeah, they have a photography business and does videography, and he works for another company. But that's
and he's a brown belt.
No, he's a purple belt.
Purple belt. Mm-hmm. Now, you're a black belt?
Black.
First,
correct.
Second.
I have a second degree, and I'm about a year and a half overdue for my third degree.
That's what I was on my first.
I've got to go see my coach, and I've got to get it from him. Mm-hmm. It goes by time after black belt. It has nothing to do with like how good you are or anything like that, but you're eligible to receive it after a certain amount of years.
And that's one thing that you're going to notice in the jiu-jitsu community. Like if you say hey, like what's your rank, and they'll say purple belt or a brown belt or a black belt or blue belt or whatever the case may be. But the next question coming, and it's already in the chamber. Like you're getting fired 2 rounds. Is, well, who did you get your belt from? Mm-hmm. And that is one of the things in that jiu-jitsu, community and culture, because there's so many people doing jiu-jitsu now, but like we all lineate to the same people. So we know whose coaches were who, and that's always the next, chambered question that's going to be coming in. And so that's one of the things that, again, I think makes us unique is Cole's lineage comes from the Carlson Gracie line, all the way, back into Elio Gracie and Carlos Gracie, but and then my lineage goes through the Hickson Gracie line to Elio and Carlos, and it's those were cousins of the same family that branched off into their own teams and coaches, but that's always going to be one of the things, because the ranking system in jiu-jitsu is unlike most martial arts. In fact, the other martial arts kind of have taken them from us. So we're very it's within the community. That's always going to be the question. It's not what you are, it's who you got it from.
I see. And now, how would you guys explain, I guess, if you could do it quickly, I don't know how much time you have, but first degree, and you said it was 9 or 10 degrees?
Right.
Yeah, once you get your black belt.
You want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right.
I need to grab a notepad.
So the belt system was developed in judo from Jigoro Kano. So when you go into a martial arts facility, and let's say they're teaching, and this is not a knock on any other kind of martial art, but let's say they're teaching like Taekwondo. And because I took Taekwondo, and I love Taekwondo, so it was great. But there was a little plaque on the wall, and it said that students would get a white belt, and through the blood and the dirt and the sweat and everything, it eventually would get so dirty that it turned black, and that's where the black belt came from. And that's a really cute story, but it's absolutely not true at all. The black belt was developed by Jigoro Kano, and I don't want to get into the how he started turning jiu-jitsu and calling it judo and everything, but essentially he was an educator himself, and he wanted to teach jiu-jitsu to people, and he wanted to do it in a way that he could, for one thing, make the public accept it, because at the time, this was post-samurai, this is at the end of the Edo period, where the samurai were the ruling class in Japan, and they were actually being, you ever seen the movie Last Samurai? Well, the military was being westernized. That means that Japan wanted their culture westernized. And so the jiu-jitsu was actually being pushed down. And so people didn't publicly display or promote that they were actually training. He wanted to change that. So he saw the swim team wearing a little black ribbon at the university he was teaching at. And if they wore that little black ribbon, that meant they were on the varsity team. They had made the squad. And so he just delineated that between his students that were on the team and students that knew nothing. And so that was the white and the black belt. Well, then competition started, and you had to start kind of delineating between a beginner and an expert. So that's where he developed the degrees, which was Nidan, Shodan, on down the line, where he actually named the degrees. But us, in our Western kind of way of doing things, instead of naming the belt a certain belt where you would get a certificate, that we just started delineating it in degrees. And so in jiu-jitsu, where we adopted that judo belt system, because the original person who brought jiu-jitsu to Brazil was Mitsuo Maeda, who taught the Gracies. Bringing that belt system, the degrees were actually brought in that same manner. And so it's a time thing, but essentially it's a recognition of how long you've been a black belt or been coaching. And so it's a different type of rank in that sense.
Yeah. And then jiu-jitsu, after you get the black belt, your first 3 stripes are 3 years apart. and then between the 3rd to the 4th and to the 5th, it's like 5 years apart. And then from the 5th to the 6th and the 7th, I think it's 7. And then
Yes, you're right.
and then after that, it's how many years is it after that?
After that, it's 8 and then 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's
And you get different. And
there's new belts
yeah.
that have been distributed for like a 5th degree or
sixth
7th,
degree.
sixth degree black belt. You get this coral belt, like a coral snake, meaning like it's like black, red, black, red, black, red, like that. And then, but you're a coral belt, but you're still 6th degree black belt. That's what that coral belt indicates. And then there's a white, red style. And then there's the red belt. The red belt is a 10th degree black belt.
So do you guys?
You got to be really old to be a red belt, obviously. It has nothing to do with you're this good or that good. And just to clear something up, when you're a white belt and you have 4 stripes, you're a 4-stripe white belt. You are not a 4th degree white belt. So please don't say that. People know that you're a liar if you say you're a 4th degree white belt. That's not real. Okay, so
I start training. I'm a 4th degree white belt.
That's right. Yeah. Those stripes that I put on the belts, coming from some certain coaches, they want to see certain things. Like those are just merit stripes for me because people need motivation. But I don't think I had my coach didn't give me stripes.
I didn't get a stripe till I was a brown belt.
That's what I'm saying. Like it was like my coach. Like I remember my coach coming in to teach a seminar for me, and he handed off like a few stripes to people, and then he called me on the phone later, and he was like, hey, how many stripes you got on your belt? And I was a brown belt at the time. I was like none. He was like, oh, I'll throw a couple on there, I guess. And I was like, thanks. You're doing a really good job. I appreciate it. And it's completely different. With the
we try to be a little bit more
ceremonial,
new school. It's like it is to be like good job. It's not a fake good job. It's like no, dude, you're doing good, man. Keep it up. Because sometimes like white to blue belt can take somebody 6 months. But also take another person 4.5 years. So it's like, don't compare yourself to other people. So these stripes, it's not a way for us to just keep you in the game. But some people, I can see where you get frustrated. You're 2 years in, and you saw maybe another guy that came in the same time you did, and he got his blue belt. You're just not ready. You can come 2 times a week or 3 times in 3 weeks, because your schedule and you got kids and you got a job and you have a job that was shift work, et cetera, et cetera. You guys aren't the same. And that's okay. You came here with a rod in your leg and he didn't. It's okay. So the stripes are a way for us to, maintain like where you're at and how close you're probably getting to the next belt. But it's not a way for it to get, you don't need to compare yourself to other people. That's not healthy anyways. But don't get frustrated. That's why we give them out.
I never really, I guess because I'm so ignorant's a weird word to say, but I'm lacking in knowledge of this. I always imagined it had to do with, like you said, it's not about being good, oh, you're good, woohoo. Yeah. I always imagined it was about being good, but that makes much more sense for it to be a test-based, time-based application process as opposed to this guy's a freaking gorilla.
It's really like a combination.
It's a combination of it all.
Yeah.
It's like again, we test because we have a lot of students. And so we don't want that's the reason why we test. When people say that they don't test their students, well, okay, like you must have 5 students, because we don't have 5 students. We have a lot of students. And I want to make sure that there are not things that have slipped through the cracks. So I just have a baseline. So I already know what they're good at, but I have a baseline of things that, like, all right, I know they can do this, 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 this. I have never actually had them explain this move or this strategy to me. Hey, do this. And then they'll do it. And then I see something that was wrong. And I was like, now it's not a test, it's a lesson. And I could be like, no, do it like this, do it this way. And then, okay. And then we go back down the list and things like that. So, but again, the only reason we got them to the point to where we're asking them those questions is because they showed the ability the dedication to themselves and the art and the crafts that we got them, that we recognized that, and we wanted them to test to see how progressive they, or how much progress they have made. And those stripes are almost reminders for us. We'll throw the stripe on. It's like, this person's doing pretty well. We'll throw a stripe on them because that, you know, kind of almost like makes that student stand out from this student here. And I can, you know, and I'm not saying that like they're all nameless, faceless, but yeah, when you have, how many, I mean, there's a lot of students in Bon Air right now.
Yeah, we have well over 200.
Right. And then,
Wow, in Bon Air alone?
right.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and, you know, and I have a, from a coaching standpoint, when I'm coaching the class, I have a personal responsibility to every one of those students. Well, think of how, you know, granted, there's not 200 on the mat at the same time, but you know,
Classes.
you see, but you see my point, and it's the same thing in Dublin. Like, you know, we may have there. I mean, may have 20 people on the mat, but you know, I have to remind myself, like, okay, like this person's doing well with this person's doing well with this, and then I can give me a chance to evaluate and make sure that we didn't have things slip through the cracks.
Oh, it makes sense.
Education.
Yeah, for sure. And now, Cole, are you still, I don't know how this works, so forgive me, but are you with American Top Team, or did you train with them?
Yeah, I will always be an American Top Team fighter. Yeah. So, but I just went there last week just to kind of step foot back in the gym, see the men, see the women, and watch the training, participate in the training with some of the guys. It was a nice trip. But like that's where I got my education, and the school in Bon Air it is an affiliate. You know, American Top Team Warner Robins is what it is on their website. It's just for me to hold that flag as like a thank you. And if somehow it does have somebody come in because it was American Top Team, that's cool. I don't think it's as big for that area or that community like it would be in Atlanta, let's say. But it's just like, that's where I came from. That's my education. I validated it. I did it. I got a good education with world champion coaches, and now I'm trying to pay homage to those guys by kind of carrying that stuff along and giving it back to the next wave.
Yeah, because I believe American, from what little I know about this exactly, it seems to me that they're kind of like that top tier.
It's the best gym in the world, and I don't mean like I'm not being biased. It's gotten MMA Gym of the Year like 6 years in a row. Coach of the Year has come from American Top Team for like that same number of years, and we produce the most world champions and the most amount of high-level fighters. And people will contact American Top Team, their insert organization top contender here, and Top Team will say no. It's like there's a full house. I mean, the other day for wrestling practice, there was like 75, 80 pro fighters.
Wow.
I mean, I'm talking about high-level people between PFL and UFC and Bellator and Ryzen and ONE FC. And it's just like, oh my gosh, look at the level of talent. And the culture there is really incredible right now. It is being ran like a true professional organization, you know.
It's incredible. And it's wild to think that you guys, with your connections and your experience, are here.
Right here.
These small towns.
So don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
Come see us, not later, not after you get in shape.
Right.
Yeah.
Not after you get your kid smart before you send him to school.
Yeah.
Send him to school now.
Yeah. It is. That is incredible to think that that level of education is accessible to a town. I think Dublin's population is like,
About 17,000, 18,000.
yeah, it's not very big. You know,
Right.
it's like 18,000-ish, you know? And it's wild to think, where is Top Team at? The American
Coconut Creek, Florida is the headquarters.
Florida. And now,
But you got 50,000 people in Lawrence County.
yeah, it's a big
And,
county.
and that's the thing, you know, it's the surrounding communities. You know, there's not really anything that, and we did choose Dublin because we were like, hey, you know, there's there's not anybody who's going to be able to facilitate what we can facilitate, in the area. So let's make it happen.
Well, and how long did it take you to get your black belt? Like that time frame?
Well, like I said, I do not recognize the years prior to 2000 and the end of 2008, or I'm sorry, the end of 2007 when I started judo. But I've trained since the end of 2005. That was my first taste of training. But it got from actual jiu-jitsu with my coach. It was it took me 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, it was 8 years. I was actually a white belt the longest out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of people like when I tell people. I was like, yeah, I was a white belt. Like technically, I was a white belt for like 4 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
then I got my blue belt, and I was a blue belt for almost 3. And then, but I was I got my purple belt. And then I got my brown belt a year and a half after that, and then another year and a half or maybe 2, I was a black belt. But that kind of if I count from 2007, 8, 9, to 10, that was me being a white belt. And there was a lot of, like I said, a lot of training. But then those last 2 years, I actually started getting an education. They started actually, and then I consider those last 2 years of being a white belt where they were like, no, what are you doing? Where'd you learn that? Why are you doing this? And it's like, oh, I thought I was supposed to. And it was like, no, don't do that. It's like, and that's where I was talking about, like the techniques may be the same, but the strategy's not.
Wow. Well, it's been a good one. It's been nice.
You got your black belt pretty fast.
It was pretty quick. Yeah. 2012, but I put the gi on and started training real Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in like 2006. But I got like
6 years.
I've been doing no gi and submission fighting and MMA, with that small team that I was with. But I was a white belt for like 30 days. I was a blue belt for 10 months. I was a purple belt for like a year. So like in 2.5 years, I was a brown belt. But I was a brown belt for 4.5 years. That's where I spent most of my growth.
Yeah. And that's kind of like I said, like from the end of 2005 or 6ish to, that 2000, the end of 2008. That was me doing MMA and judo.
That's right.
And so
and it's not the same as jiu-jitsu.
It's not the same. There was especially when I say I was getting trained, not coached. So then, like I say, it was like 2 years at white belt, 3 years at blue belt. Yeah.
And this is training jiu-jitsu 2-3 times a week. We're not, I was a professional fighter, but fighters got to do boxing. We got to do Muay Thai. We got to do strength and conditioning. We got to do the sparring and the mixing of the martial arts. We don't have all the time to do jiu-jitsu, just like a regular person has to help around the house with their spouse, and they might have other business opportunities, and they have jobs, and they have children, and they have other things. So what we're saying is that we are not special. You can come do the same exact thing that we have done, and you can put in the same amount of work, or less, or more.
Did you, during your time coming up, did you have any, I'm sure obviously when you were amateur not getting paid, you had like jobs and stuff, but when you were going pro or when you went pro, did you still have to work a side job or anything? Or were you just full on?
I think when I first turned pro, I was still making sandwiches at the bagel bakery in Macon.
Oh, you're making some sandwiches, huh?
Yeah. Coffee, sandwiches, stuff like that. But that was the only job I ever had, really. Really.
Nice.
And after that, there's no money in professional fighting. I'll tell you that. But I was making tens of dozens of dollars. But
tens of dozens.
Yeah. If you can pay your car insurance, your phone bill, and put gas in the car, it's.
That's my favorite speech that you give.
Yeah.
It's been a good week.
it's you got somebody in the back, they're about to go out, fight, and Cole's cornering them, and the tens of dozens of dollars speech comes out, and it's all about passion. And one day I'm gonna have it posterized and put in the.
That's
in
what
the
we
thing.
need.
It's gonna be like
need it.
Yeah, and the students are gonna come in one day, 10 years from now, and they're gonna be looking at it and be like, what is this? It's like only the greatest pre-fight speech.
Yeah.
You're going to make tens of dozens of dollars.
Fighting in front of tens of dozens of people.
Yep, that's right.
Mostly people's girlfriends and their other coaches.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and I mean, all right, my last question, because I'm really just interested to hear, with you getting on American Top Team and all that process, did they recruit you after seeing you fight, or
it would things. Let me also get just how MMA was different then than it is now, as far as like its availability and all the things. American Top Team was different than it is now, so the process to get in the team is different. Okay, so now, okay, so don't do what I did. Okay, but the way that I got in was I knew my friend and manager at the time. He had swapped teams to American Top Team, and he was a UFC guy, and he basically just vouched for me. And then I was able to come in, and I trained, and they basically just kind of gave me free reign for a little bit just to see if it would be a good fit, and if I was a team player, team guy, and it was. And the percent you pay them, like based off of your purse and things like that. But like again, you're not making anything. So back then I was paying 20% of what I made, but I wasn't making anything. So it's like the level of training that I got for what they got was, it didn't pay off for them. You understand what I'm saying? But it's like that's the way that I got my foot in that specific door. Was that I just right place, right time. I knew somebody that had gone there. And they kind of said, "Hey, can I bring this guy that I'm mentoring?" And they said, "Yeah."
I see.
But it will not work like that for you now. If you just for in case anybody actually
go try it out.
Yeah, if
He got into the basement.
Yeah, that's right. It does not work that way now. If you are interested in joining American Top Team, I suggest that if you're an amateur, keep going. If you're a pro, a newly turned pro, you might be 4-1 or something like that. Keep going, and then the moment you think that you've got some traction, or you need to go to a super team like the American Top Team, best thing to probably do is send the GM Richie an email, which you can find at americantopteam.com, and you can get the email and the phone number there, and basically just be very humble. Let them know who you are, your record. Probably send a link from Tapology or mixedmartialarts.com, your certified record. And, they may schedule a phone call with you or not. They might say, we're not taking anybody right now. Reach back out to us and don't take it personal. Like I said, the gym is full. So, but I know that the only way to get in the door is to just ask. Be polite. That will go a long way. A lot of fighters don't know how to be that way. Be humble, be polite.
I see. Wow. Well, this is probably what I'm interested to hear from both of you, especially with your life experience and the different things you guys accomplished, and the different levels of suffering you've experienced with not only the physical suffering, but I'm sure there's been other things in life that's been challenging to traverse and navigate through.
This man's got 4 daughters. Of course he's had...
Dude, I got 2. Wait, so how old's your oldest?
17. Yeah.
How's the teenage years going?
No, she was.
That's what I'm scared about.
So
Or just nervous?
the worst years are always middle school.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So and they kind of, and the sad thing about kids growing up, especially, now that she's about to be 18 years old in January, is that those years that we say the rough years, the teenage years, they went by so fast that I don't even even if there was hiccups here and there, you don't remember them because you just love them. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm seeing a 17-year-old who's really responsible, helps me out with my other kids, intelligent. She's been taking college courses all year. She hasn't graduated high school yet. She basically just takes her college courses in that dual enrollment type of thing. Works, and like, so yeah, man, it's like, just enjoy it. And like, cause it's going to go by so fast that like, it's not going to matter. I mean, just, it's going to be cool. Like, I got one coming up now, you know, number 2, which, that's Maggie. She is 11, and there's going to be some rough years coming up.
Yeah.
But, you know, like,
just roll with it.
Yeah, just roll with it. It's like, the thing is like, you can't change society. Society is what it is, and they're going to have their influence. And so you just got, like, I try to give them real life lessons and just be their dad. They're all funny as hell. Yeah. Like they you know, and
dude, your Instagram's hilarious.
Like
some of the stuff you share is so funny.
Well, I mean, like, my kids they're not afraid to try to roast me.
Oh boy.
Like, we get into it. And you know, my 7-year-old and my 8-year-old, them two are they're thick as thieves, and they like, them two are going to be the ones that, because they're conniving. You know what I mean? Like,
conniving.
Yeah, we all call these kids angels and all this. Man, these children are the most selfish thing. Like, a baby, think how selfish a baby is. Yeah. Like, has no consideration for the world around it at all. And then every year it just gets just a tad bit better.
Oh,
a tad bit better. And so, like, you know, and then, but the thing is like, you know, and of course I'm being facetious, but like, you know, these kids growing up so fast, and it kind of blurring by so fast that, like, it's like, I don't even, you know, they get in trouble for this or that, and I just know that hopefully I'm preparing them to just be good people, and I don't want them to be regular folks in the sense of just settling when they get older.
Sheep.
Yes, that's the big thing. Is I want my kids, if they choose to be a sheep, that's fine. You know what I mean? If they choose to settle, that's fine. But I really would like to cultivate some ambition in them. That's the biggest thing, especially, you know, coming up. Like, I always say that I didn't have any boys because the world couldn't handle 2 of me. But and of course I'm still being facetious, y'all. But like, it's
world couldn't handle 2 of jazz.
That's right. Yeah. So it's, you know, but like you know, I did need, with my personality type, with the kind of things that I like doing, I did need a little bit, and the way that, like, my dad raised me, and which he was a great guy. I think he raised me in the way that, you know, I needed to be raised. I think I needed that a little bit of something to soften my edges. So I was giving girls
4 of them.
Yeah, and you know, I was always joking around. I was like, yep, when I get older, I'm gonna be surrounded by women. I did not know that I meant that.
Spoke it into existence.
Yeah, it was gonna be, you know, just a bunch of girls and doing girl things, and, you know, there's me, and, you know, I just kind of roll with it. You got to roll with it, man.
Yeah. I had donuts with Dad today, so I have
I remember that.
Man, I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, and so I left I don't know, I'm kind of a big old softy, you know what I mean? And dude, I left that donuts with Dad slightly teared up, man. My daughter gave me, actually, that right there. And it says, I love you this much, and that's her little hands. She made that just recently.
Got them all over my house.
Oh, my God. And, like, it was just those little moments, because we're at a phase, my wife and I, where it sometimes feels like it's nothing but chaos until bedtime. Yeah. When they're asleep, it's cool, it's quiet at the house. But in between those moments, it's like, oh, my God. She's got that. There's stuff everywhere. Oh, her diaper's off. Oh, my, you know, just pure, you know, no. And then we just got hit. I don't know if you guys avoided it, but, you know, the flu and COVID and all that just went through our area. No one really prepares you for that as a parent, where it's just like, all right, I got all my plans and everything's scheduled. Bam. You get sick. Everybody gets sick. And you're just kind of navigating that whole, you know, aspect. But anyways, I really appreciate you guys coming on. It's been great to, hear where you guys come from and all that is going on with Dublin Jiu Jitsu and in your histories, really.
Yeah, I learned a lot about Cole today.
Look at there. Well, so what would you say for between you two as the last part of this would be your 3 biggest life insights from your experience so far?
Life insights?
I guess that's a weird way to say it. Wisdom nugget would be better. No, I'm playing. I don't know, like things you've learned through the different things you've accomplished and the...
How to listen. It's like I tell my students, you don't listen. And they don't. First off, they don't. But I also know that I didn't listen or receive all of the information or even maybe some of it, but it wasn't the most important part. I can listen a lot better now. Discipline is a huge thing, to be a professional fighter, I had to learn a lot of discipline as far as like being able to manage my training and staying focused on an end goal. And that's one thing that's kind of transitioned into this aspect of my life as far as like seeing the end state for what I want to be able to achieve and the impact that I want to be able to make and how I can create different new apexes constantly to be able to get to that end state. And another one is just being humble. Humility is huge. And I think that as a young man, it was something I definitely didn't have much of, and I could probably always use a little bit more. But it's something where through my experience, I know exactly who I am and where I stand. That there are many people who are a lot better than me, who have destroyed me, and more of them are being made all of the time because I'm in this for the long haul. And so for my capabilities, because I'm in it for forever, it will be a bell curve. You suck, coming up, and then you get good or good for what you can achieve. Like I said, when you got in based off of your genetics and abilities and coordination, mental factors, all this stuff, you're trying to hold that apex for as long as possible. You get the pinnacle, you want that thing to be flat because it is going to be going down. I'll be a 90-year-old man, I hope, God willing one day, and I hope that dementia won't have settled in too bad and I can be on the mat. So I'm not going to be, you think I'm going to have a good ability by then? When I'm a 10th degree black belt, I won't. I'll be awful ability wise. Hey, you're good. Good for you. And now we've come full circle. So I think just having that humility to understand who I am, where I'm at, and where I'm going. I think that that's huge. John.
Repeat the question. Yeah. The three things that.
Yeah, how could I phrase this? The 3 biggest things John's learned throughout his life that has been beneficial or...
Through jiu-jitsu?
Really anything. Or just life in general?
We call the way we spar in jiu-jitsu rolling. And... we've talked a lot about it. Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. Put yourself in the mental state to where when you are the nail, you may recognize you're the nail, but don't let it stop you from becoming a hammer again. Always have, the humility that Cole talked about, and just be reflective. Just like after a hard sparring session, whether we won or lost the quote-unquote win or losing practice, because that's all we're doing is practicing.
We talking about practice?
We talking about practice, So it's like whether you quote-unquote winning practice, which is, I said something to the students a couple of weeks ago about that. I was like, congratulations, you won practice. But, but always, give yourself time of reflection because the more as I get older, the more time I've given myself reflection, the more I realize that, hey, I was wrong. So then that actually gives me patience, which would be the third thing. And so as I get older, I do find myself getting more patient about, I don't have to make decisions right away. I don't have to do this, these exact things this way. I can be patient in my approach because, the whole 80-20 rule, where 80% of your results come from like 20% of your effort. I can actually think about the approach the way I do things. So I think that's three things. I don't know if
Yeah, good.
Yeah, but that's the way I would kind of approach things. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It just kind of it settles me and calms me and just makes me more reflective, more appreciative, and more. And I'm able to bring that into all the aspects of my life. Yeah, I'm a little bit more assertive on certain things, like especially my personal space, or things like that, or like but I'm not like immediately, turning up the dial. Like it's the dial. I actually have a dial now, where when I was young, it was really, really chill, or
It was a switch, not a dial.
yeah, it was a switch, not exactly.
dial real
Yeah. Now I don't have a switch anymore. I have a dial.
Nice.
And I can approach it, and I can use that dial in every aspect of my life.
All right. Wow. Well, again, thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. Everybody who happens to listen to this and check this out,
I forgot there was a camera.
there is one, yeah. But go check out Dublin Jiu Jitsu or Miller.
Yeah, real quick, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Dublin Jiu Jitsu. If you want to find us online, you can go to dublinbjj.com. There's a little inquiry form. Fill it out. That helps us out a lot. We're happy to answer questions over social media, but there's only so much we can do. If you go to the website, fill out the inquiry form. Let us know if it's the question is for yourself or a child. Megan or Jesse will get back to you with a phone call. We set you up with an introductory class. Mention the podcast. We'll give you a full free week instead of just one free class. Come on in. There we can set you down. We can tell you what to expect for the class. We can show you the prices. We can do all of that for you if you just go to the website. That helps us out a lot.
And I'll link that in the description below so you can click it and go check out and do those steps. So, again, thank you guys for coming on.
That was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you inviting us. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
100.
100.